Hi all, I welcome you to the Building Culture podcast where I invite incredibly smart people who build things. Whether they be engineers, entrepreneurs, programmers, hobbyists, or researchers, it does not matter. As long as you're someone who's passionate about building things, I'll find you and podcast you. Hi, all. I want to take a brief moment to thank you all personally for supporting this podcast on YouTube and on all major podcast platforms, including Google Podcasts and Spotify. The podcast mainly features interesting people in robotics, artificial intelligence, and entrepreneurship. If you believe that the information that I'm providing might be of benefit to you or to someone you know, it would be really great if you could hit the subscribe button and press the notification icon so that you can get notified on time whenever the next part is out. It would literally take you a second or two to subscribe to the podcast, but it would really mean a lot to me because I can grow the podcast to a level where I can reach more people, invite ever more interesting guests, and have a more meaningful impact. So let's begin now.
Like when you look at startups nowadays who pursue machine learning, especially in the area of vision, then usually there's a detection that you can do, but then like eventually you have to get into contact with some material, right? You have to pick something, grasp something, but if this is a very complex task and not really, yeah, not really only possible with software. You eventually have the problem that you have to touch something, and if there's no expertise in your company about that, then either you stay solving, let's say, uh, only certain problems that you can solve with current actuation and sensing methods, um, or yeah, I don't know, you kind of lose contact to newer areas.
And actually, this kind of expertise would also like understanding the dynamics of how, let's say, cloth is moving, or when you're trying to grasp how the cloth is changing its state, so to say, is also essential if you're trying to build a simulation. So this expertise is, I mean, inevitable for a company that's dealing with fabric manipulation in essence. So I think, yeah, that's a very important uh, part which cannot be ignored, right? Grasping without grasping, I mean, no amount of computer vision you do would be enough. So now let's move to the second part where we'll talk about Sewts vision and more technical stuff that is going on at Sewts. So to begin with, let's can you elaborate briefly of what Suits does, uh, what its maybe customers are, and in which area, which market uh, it's focused on currently?
Mhm. Yeah, so as Suits, even though this might sound counterintuitive now, we understand ourselves as a software company with a lot of hardware and process knowledge, and our mission is to handle easily deformable materials like textiles for various industrial purposes, let's say. And so the long-term vision I've stated before, that we eventually want to be able to fully automate clothing production and therefore, let's say, solve most of the automation problems regarding and textiles and easily deformable materials in a way. And when yeah, when you look at our current markets and the areas that we're tackling, we have gone to let's say, easier markets first. That's our strategy in a way, and then tackle the harder and bigger problems later. So we have figured out quite early that clothing production is very, let's say, rare in Central Europe, and that it's going to be very hard to find initial customers and test with them locally if we would pursue that way right from the beginning. So therefore, we have found a really interesting market, which is the industrial laundry market. And in that market, you usually have like hotels or homes for the elderly, hospitals, and so on. They all have to get their laundry washed somewhere, and they have it collected with trucks. Those trucks bring the dirty laundry to industrial laundries. It's sorted, it's washed and dried, and then humans have to take it out of a bin, flatten it, and put it on a folding machine. So especially for towels, that is a very tedious work. A human worker does like 500 to 600 towels per hour like that, and yeah, you can imagine doing that 8 hours a day, and even sometimes during night shifts is not the most fun of things. So that's where we are with our first product, with our Sewts Velum system, where we want to automate this process step of taking a towel out of a bin, flattening it, and then putting it on a conveyor so it can be folded eventually.
Okay. And the primary challenge is that of fabric manipulation. So, first of all, opening a seam and then you feed it to a folding machine. That's how the current system is. So, why do you think like there are not a lot of other companies that are also, targeting this kind of a problem? I mean, not just in Europe, all throughout the world. Actually, there are very few companies who are tackling this particular area of not even specifically fabrics, just deformable objects in general. There's a technical challenge associated with it, but at the same time, there are a lot of other areas where there are technical challenges, and people still found companies and try to solve those problems. So why do you think there's not much business work going on in this particular area?
Yeah, I think you're definitely right with that assumption. I'm pretty sure there's not that many companies tackling these problems because they're so interdisciplinary. So when you look at what we have, let's say in our tech abilities, we have the knowledge of easily deformable materials, including FEM simulations. We have controlling robotics. We have, let's say, grasping and handling of these materials. We have a vision component that's comprised of classical computer vision and AI, and we have, of course, the process and prototyping knowledge of, let's say, whatever it is you're trying to automate. So this is not something that like that you can find many teams for, let's say, globally. And I think it will become increasingly more important to fuse these skills of different areas of engineering and computer science to tackle these problems. And I think most of the time, since there are not so many teams that can solve these problems, companies try to go around them and, let's say, evade the problem altogether, just maybe being able to find a process where they can just, let's say, cut out some of the expertise that would be needed. Yeah.
So the main problem is like the interdisciplinary nature of the problem and the technical challenge of it. So also running a hardware-based startup is significantly way more difficult than, let's say, if you had uh, a software platform online, and then you could just work on your system. So a hardware based startup comes up with its own challenges of having the right equipments and all these kinds of things. So what, according to you, have been the challenges that you faced that you would probably not face if it was not hardware related startup? So like hardware specific challenges related to startup.
Mm. Yeah, so I think there are many aspects to that, and one of the first aspects that you face when founding a startup that has, let's say, relations in hardware is usually the money aspect. So most of the time, if you just have a software startup, everyone has their laptop, and then you're basically ready to go if your code is good enough and you have a good sales pipeline and great product. And yeah, you could basically start from your a dorm room right away, and there would not be any cost involved. When you look at our initial steps, we were not even able to buy our first robot by ourselves. So we kind of had to get a scholarship through the university and be able to procure something like that. So money is definitely one of the major drivers in the beginning. And secondly, I would say it's also about let's say being sure what you need to build. That's really critical because um, many startups or yeah, many engineers in hardware, they think, okay, I've learned all of this, I need to now apply it and build all this stuff now. But actually, you just got to understand most of the stuff and buy it and put it together in a way. And I've heard from other startups, they have started, let's say, self-developing switch cabinets or something like that, something that was not their field of expertise, and they put so much effort into that. And then you realize, well, I could have procured that, but it's nothing you like know right off the bat, right from coming out of university. You gotta kind of get a feeling for, okay, what's the core technology that we have? What is the stuff we gotta do in-house kind of, and what we really have to own from the very bottom, and what can we do externally in a way. And I think getting that right, so you get the correct speed of, let's say, developing your product. That's very critical. And I would say uh, this is different depending on every area you go into. So different for PCB design to, let's say, automation to robotics, like understanding how the industry works, who can provide you with what, and how your expertise fits in there, kind of.
So actually figuring out the right thing to build and the right way of doing it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely is.
definitely is. Okay. And so for a hardware based startup, actually, there are a bunch of factors that would play a role for its success as well. And I think Suits was also a couple of times labeled as the fastest growing startup, right? So, what, according to you, contributed to this really quick growth? Because I've also seen internally that a lot of improvements have been going on at a very quick pace. So, what, according to you, actually drove that?
Mm. Um, I think first and foremost, it's like committing to, let's say, a goal 1 or 2 years down the line, like in the founding team being on the same page, driving towards the same thing. So even if you're not constantly syncing yourself, you're all running towards the same thing, all advancing in the same direction. That's probably the most important thing, and second most important thing was actually, I think, yeah, getting initially money, basically, because eventually, like as I said, like the first money we got, we straight out spend it all on hardware, basically. So the first 50K we had, we spent all on robots and grippers and controllers and so on, and yeah, built our first demonstrator, but with first, let's say, real cash at hand, you could actually grow and build something. So that was really critical, and I think also finding the right people that you can then convince of, let's say, that you're really driving a change here, and that you're not just the next I don't know, delivery startup around the corner where there is lots of money to be made, but also that you're driving a technological change, and that you can be part of that in a way, and contribute to it. And so yeah, then getting the first people to buy into the company is critical for growing and showing, hey, these guys, they do not just sell bullshit, but they have something that others are willing to contribute towards, that they can believe in, and be part of. And in the beginning, it's lots of young people that join right out of university for internships, working students, and so on. But as soon as you, let's say, reach a certain size, and the idea has matured more, then this is also something that draws, let's say, more experienced people. And this is something of my more recent learnings, that um, even though you need many young and motivated people with great technical skills, you also need the um, let's say, more mature, more experienced engineers and developers, because those are the ones who have brought something to market already, and will help to structure growth in a way. Um, yeah, that's what I see. Yeah.
Systems and processes as well. So,
Most definitely.
actually, like you mentioned, two most important things that would be crucial, and one you mentioned money. Without it, hardware-based startup, it's super difficult. And the second is people. So we'll talk about both of these aspects one by one. So let's talk about funding. At which stage of funding is Sewts currently, and maybe you can talk about the previous stages and how it began, and how it received the different funding stages to get to where it is right now, and maybe also a bit about what the future goal is. Of course, get more funding, but yeah, what the direction would be.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So currently we have closed our seed round in April 2021, where we have, let's say, received a substantial seven-figure amount from really great investors. First, the high-tech Gründerfonds from Bonn, Apex Ventures in Vienna, and also Bayern Capital here from Bavaria. Um, and yeah, that's the current status, and we hope to, let's say, use that money to get our first use case into production, into the market, and to show that we can, let's say, bring such a difficult technology to an end customer in a way, and then move on from there. Um, and the way to get here was, let's say, not that easy, because that's also something, when you found a startup, you're not really sure in the beginning how you will do the whole funding thing, and how you will move forward. And many companies have, let's say, started out by bootstrapping or so, and Yeah, actually, that was the easiest part for us. We were sure we could not do that because we could not afford a single unit of hardware, let's say. So we started actually with a grant from the Initiative for Industrial Innovators. So that's also a let's say a half publicly backed and half uh, privately backed VC that's very close to Unternehmertum, and they initially believed in our idea and gave us a grant to buy our second robot actually. So that was basically the first funding we received that was not from the state. And actually, I got to start a little before that. So that was actually the first money we received as a company, but for the project, it was actually the Exist founders stipendium scholarship, Exist scholarship from the Ministry of Economic Affairs from Germany. So yeah, that was actually most critical in financing our initial research after our master's thesis, and let's say gave us the chance to buy our first robot. And then when that basically ran out, we had basically already the funding from the Initiative for Industrial Innovators, which gave us our second robot. And then with that, we were able to build our first demonstrator to show, okay, this technology that we want to bring into the industrial laundry can actually work and will work. It was basically a table with two robots on top and a camera, and it would take a picture of a towel, and the robots would then go to a seam, pick that up and slide it open and place it back on the table. And it would do that like as long as you put another towel there repeatedly. So that was actually that was actually really important, which we didn't realize at the time. But for this demonstrator, basically, we got our first funding after that, which was our pre-seed round with a couple of angel investors in December of 2019, I think. And yeah, they they thought we were interesting from the very beginning when they first met us at the Cash Walk from the LMU, so an event where many investors and startups come together and let's say mingle a bit. But the most important part was that we were able to show that we're like a motivated and cool team, and that we could actually produce technology that no one else could produce. And yeah, that's why we got our pre-seed funding in December 2019. And yeah, with that, we went forward and built a first prototype that could actually feed towels in a more industrial setting into a folding machine eventually. So going from a bin to the folding machine, the whole process. That's what we were able to build with that kind of money. And then let's say with our more recent funding since April, we're now able to be at a first customer with this product and yeah, optimize for all the stuff that still is not 100% perfect. But yeah, that's where we're at now. And regarding the future, so it will depend, let's say, a little bit on how the next months go, let's say. But our goal is to have latest by mid 2022 a Series A that we want to raise. We're currently discussing the details, let's say, of how we will actually move forward there, but maybe to give, let's say, a sneak peek into what's gonna come. So most likely there's going to be two directions that we aim for. One is probably still in the industrial laundry market, and another bigger one outside of that. But yeah, I don't wanna spoil that. So we're still discussing, and yeah, it's not ready to be published yet, let's say.
At the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And one of the things that you mentioned was that the main progress which allowed you to actually buy the equipments and start doing the experiments and playing around with the robots was with the exist funding, right? So
hmm hmm
uh, before that, you didn't have any hardware at all, or how was it?
yeah, so not own hardware, you could say. Even during exist, you do not have own hardware because the money is technically given to the chair at which you write your thesis, and then um, you can basically say what needs to be bought with that. But the chair owns it, let's say, and after this let's say program is over, you can get it from the chair, let's say at a discounted price, because it's then used kind of, and yeah. But um, no, previously we had no hardware at all. We only were able to borrow stuff. So we were, let's say, messaging many PhD students from different chairs in mechanical engineering, and also, yeah, talking to lots of companies in the tech sector for, let's say, borrowing stuff. So looking at my master's thesis, I think, tested cameras that would have cost in total like 40,000 euros, but I was able to borrow them all from different manufacturers and basically try them out, set them up, create data, and then move on with that. So yeah, that's something I would emphasize on for everyone who tries that. Just call up the companies and explain your ideas, and most of the time the sales guy is going to be as interested in that project as you are yourself, and you can rent, let's say, lots of stuff, or even get it free for just a couple of weeks to fool around. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that was possible as well. So based on these demonstrations, so these were the demonstrations that you did, let's say for the exist presentation, and then you got the funding and you could proceed in a more systematic way.
hmm Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So another aspect that you talked about that was crucial in that is actually crucial in the success of any startup is the people and the recruitment part, building the right work culture. So
hmm hmm
you have also been involved a lot in hiring people, talking to people, and the work culture part of things. So uh, let's first talk about what you actually look for when hiring a candidate for your startup, so to say.
Mm. Um, yeah, when I look for people, it's very hard to say straight off the bat what I look for. I look for motivation, definitely. I look for smart people, and I look for authenticity in a way. So um, maybe the authenticity part I only look for because it seems to me easier to judge who someone is if they seem more authentic. But definitely the motivation part, it's crucial. You have your ups and downs, and you have your failures and hard times, and weeks where it seems like everything's gonna, let's say, go down the drain, and you need someone who will be able to pull through that, and uh, get back up and motivate themselves and strive towards the goal. That's super critical. You cannot be the one always pushing someone to achieve their best. Obviously, it's a big part and a big task as a founder also to motivate everyone to do their best. But if they do not have like this intrinsic will to move forward and to contribute, then this becomes almost an impossibility. So those are, let's say, the most critical things I'm looking for. And other than that, I think it's important to always be open and see what the person in the interview has actually to offer, because oftentimes you're hiring for a certain position and then you have someone that you interview and then um, you realize, yeah, they're not fit for this position at all, but they have something really, really awesome and good that could fit a totally different position. Or I don't know, 3 months later, you come back and you're like, yeah, now we have this position, and I remember this guy that I interviewed like 3 months ago. He was exactly fit for exactly that job, and so I try to always look for the special thing people have to bring, let's say, to the table. And I'm pretty sure for most people it's something. Um, yeah, that's how I look at this sort of thing.
So mostly you focus on like the motivation of the candidate and also the ability to deal with uncertainty and difficult situations. I mean, that also kind of connects to being self-motivated in a way. So mostly that, and also probably the ability to get along with the other co-workers and all these kinds of things. So another interesting thing about Suits is the work culture, because like everyone is super young and enthusiastic as well, and one of the values is also, let's say, humor and being open minded and being connected and all these kinds of things. So but it's probably, it looks very good on the surface, but it must not have been very easy to build such a work culture, especially in the initial phases, maybe when you were deciding the values, or maybe you were thinking that what kind of work culture we want. So can you talk about the challenges of building a work culture for a startup and how you tackled that?
Mhm. Yeah, actually, I think in the beginning it's actually easier, let's say, or at least for us it was easier in a way. So because we just had to write down our values, it was not like we were like a newly assembled team. As I've said, we've like until now we've known each other for almost 10 years now. So uh, you kind of start knowing uh, the other person really well. So you already have a feeling for like what unites you and what doesn't. So for us, it was more like, okay, you have to realize that people that join you in the future have to be, let's say, similar in a way and adhere to the same values. And so for us, the hardest thing I think was initially writing them down and agreeing, okay, what's most important in a way. And um, we always made this joke, let's say, that we can never hire someone. Like we make so dumb jokes, like while just sitting in the office by the three of us, this is going to be impossible. Like no one's ever going to be able to listen to this stupid talk, right? And so that's why this is one of our values eventually now. So we said like we do not want to build a company where we cannot, let's say, stay the way we are and let's say make some jokes and so this became an initial value of ours. And um, seeing that other people also share these values, I think that's definitely critical. But I think the hardest part for the culture is still to come, because for now we have direct contact points with everyone we hire, and let's say maybe not every day, but at least every once in a while, each of us can have contact with everyone in the company, but we will outgrow that fairly soon, and I think then it will become very, very critical, and you will see, okay, do we actually like, do other people also, let's say, uh, put forward this culture, and do they, let's say, endorse it, and let's say make it thrive, or is it just the three of us so far? So I think for now it's not easy to tell if that's going to be like that in the future, but I feel like we've done a pretty good job so far, and most people can identify with what we have as values, which are openness and freedom and team spirit and humor. And so, yeah, that's how the culture thing is.
So the work culture part of the startup is taken care of very in a very well way, in a very good way, because the values that you probably wrote on the paper initially can now be seen in the atmosphere of the company as well. So let's talk about uh, a day in your life typically. So initially, I think in the initial phases, I can imagine, and you also talked about that it was a bit more chaotic, and you were trying to do things on the go, more spontaneous. But now it's bit different, and responsibilities are also different. So how is a typical day in the life of Tim at Suits like?
Yeah, that's difficult. That's actually the I'm not sure. Actually, the impossibility of answering this question well is probably why I love the way, like, the work I do so much, because there's not, let's say, the standard day in my daily work, let's say. But I will try my best to make up an example day. Um, so yeah, I have a sleep routine, let's say. So I try to go to bed at 11 and then get up at 6:30 every morning. Just because I've realized if I don't, let's say, have the same time I get up every day, it just messes so much with my sleep cycle that I'm more tired than I can bear. So yeah, I get up at 6:30, and then I either write or read uh, for a good 45 minutes. And after that, I get ready, and then quarter to 8, usually I do some chores, and then at 8 I leave the house. So depending, well, during Corona, obviously I was a lot in home office, but yeah, working also with lots of hardware, you cannot always stay in home office, which is kind of a good thing as well. So if it's summer or spring or generally warm, I would take my bike and go to Garching. So that's basically my workout integrated into my way to work. And then usually at 9 I start working, have a coffee, a cappuccino from our amazing hardest working employee, Carl, our Italian coffee machine. And then I try in the morning actually to focus a lot on getting stuff done where I need to concentrate a lot or where I need to be creative. So um, something I really love to do is like put on like music, so I'm totally shut off from the world. Something just, let's say, without any vocals, and then have a problem in my head and go to the whiteboard and then just fully scribble the whole board like for 45 minutes or so. And when it's full, take a photo, remove everything, and continue with what I have to finish. And yeah, come up with, I don't know, some sort of structure or idea or solution to whatever is in my head. And that's those kinds of things I try to do in the mornings. If there's something like that, And it's, I would say, one of the parts of my work that I enjoy most in the, let's say, area of work I do without people. So let's say for working alone tasks, this is, let's say, the most favorite task I have. Just, let's say, blurring, no, pouring my brain onto a whiteboard and yeah, letting my thoughts flow. Um, and then there's usually lunch. So we're during Corona, we have, let's say, limited our office visitations to a maximum of 6 people in the office, so we can keep our distances and so on. But if I'm in the office, then I'll go for lunch with whoever is there. So it's also a great cultural thing. I believe that we always try to get everyone together around lunchtime, have a short conversation about whatever, not only work, but like just day-to-day things to connect with one another. And then, yeah, usually after lunch, there's quite some meetings that pile up. So most recently, I have tried to cut down more and more on meetings because when you do not watch out, they start occupying your whole day, and then suddenly you have 2, 3 days in a row where it's only meetings, and you're like, but I want to do stuff also, right? So um, I've tried cutting down on those, but yeah, you can just not, and so there'll be a few meetings or so until 5-ish or so, and then I get down on finishing all my email stuff and stuff that has piled up, looking at Jira cards, looking at Confluence comments, looking at our, let's say, some new applicants that have come in, and so all the stuff that piles up that has to be done, but that's like not so, let's say, cognitively demanding in a way. Um, and then yeah, it depends what time it is then. So sometimes uh, if it's then, I don't know, 7:30, 8 or so, and still someone is in the office, then yeah, have a quick beer with someone. So uh, I think that's something that we have cultivated throughout our studies, even before the company. That no matter how busy you are, there always needs to be room for that one beer in the evening. So, um, and then yeah, take my bike home, uh, have a dinner at, I don't know, 8:30 ish, something like that, and go to bed at 11. So yeah, that's how my regular days work.
Yeah, I've seen your calendar, and actually of probably all the co-founders, it's totally full with meetings all the time. So uh, that's the thing. And also what I appreciate about your schedule. I don't know how perfectly you're following it, but the way you have kind of designed it, at least, is like you have included fitness in your commute and everything, so you save time there, and you don't need to go to exercise at a separate time, and then you do the creative concept ideation part in the beginning, and that probably sets you in the right kind of state for doing the next steps of work. So
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah, yeah, def yeah, definitely. You can never follow it, let's say, 100%. Then if I could follow it 100%, then yeah, we would probably need to be a lot bigger. So I have people holding off, let's say, all the stuff that still needs to be done, but at a size of less than 20 people, um, it's not, let's say, realistic to not be the person for everything. If anything comes up, you're first in line to, let's say, tackle the problem, or find someone who's around to tackle it right away. And yeah, I wish I could, let's say, be more straightforward on the creative part in the mornings, but yeah, sometimes there's just stuff left to do, and then I don't get to it. So let's see how I will manage in in the next few months and years.
Perfect, right? I mean, the fact that you have this thing planned and then you try to, make it as close as possible to the ideal routine, I think that's the important part.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's move to the last section, part three. Inspirational is how we name it, and here we'll talk about your personal motivations behind all the stuff that you have been doing. So let's start with the straightforward question of what was the reason for actually going for building a startup rather than going for a PhD? Because in your typical course, let's say, I don't know how many people were in your master's program, but let's say they were 70. And so out of those 70 people, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 people or would go for such a path, and generally people would go for a job, and a lesser percentage would go for a PhD, and an even lesser percentage would go for building a startup or that direction.